Part 2 opens with a quick refresher on the events of the first film. Mayor Bellwether's hidden scheme was uncovered by Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde, leading to her arrest after her own confession was secretly recorded. The revelation shook the entire city. Bellwether was convicted, and Judy and Nick became instant heroes. Their success also led to Nick officially joining the Zootopia Police Department, creating the city's very first Bunny and Fox crime-fighting partnership. Zootopia soon celebrates another major milestone as the new mayor, Patrick, announces the completion of the massive climate barrier. The structure allows animals from every habitat to live comfortably within the city's districts. With festivities approaching, Judy and Nick eagerly await their next assignment. Chief Bogo gathers the officers and explains that a customs employee is suspected of trafficking illegal materials. The dangerous operation is assigned to experienced detectives, while Judy and Nick are told to observe only and learn from the sidelines. Unwilling to sit back, the duo secretly head to the docks disguised as a couple traveling with a child. At the restricted zone, Officer Snodley stops them and becomes suspicious, especially when he realizes they're pretending to be a family. Nick spins an emotional story about fulfilling their son's birthday wish and asks for an autograph as a souvenir. While Snodley is distracted, Judy sneaks away and opens one of the containers, discovering strange cargo inside. Before she can investigate further, Chief Bogo's voice crackles over the radio, exposing their presence. Panicking, Snodley jumps into a van and speeds away. Judy and Nick hijack a nearby pig's vehicle and give chase, with additional ZPD units joining in as the city prepares for its upcoming 100th anniversary parade. Spike strips are deployed, but Snodley manages to dodge them. Eventually, he crashes into a light pole and is knocked unconscious, yet his van keeps rolling toward the parade route. Thinking quickly, Judy accelerates, leaps into the moving van, and manages to stop it, though it crashes into a newly revealed statue. In the aftermath, Judy notices a reptile fleeing the scene and finds a shed scale left behind. Later that night, Judy watches a viral influencer video explaining that reptiles once lived in Zootopia, but were mysteriously exiled centuries ago. She connects this information to the scale. When Chief Bogo confronts Judy and Nick about their reckless behavior, he is furious. Judy attempts to show him the evidence, but he cuts her off, reminding them that discipline matters. Though he admits he respects Judy, he warns that if they mess up again, the partnership will be dissolved. As punishment, they are ordered to attend a mandatory partnership training program. Their instructor, Fusby, claims the workshop will strengthen their bond, but Judy and Nick quickly feel out of place among elite, well-known duos. Other officers quietly mock them. Judy becomes determined to prove themselves, while Nick insists they shouldn't worry about anyone else's opinions. Judy studies obsessively, while Nick remains relaxed and unconcerned. That night, Judy spots a news report about the long-missing Linksley Journal resurfacing after an old reptile-related incident. She recognizes the same van from the chase footage. Reviewing her evidence again, she discovers a pamphlet linked to the upcoming Zootopia Gala. Further online research reveals a video claiming reptiles once tried to steal the journal and that a snake would eventually return for it. Judy calls Nick with her theory, but he remains skeptical. Refusing to let it go, Judy goes to see him in person and convinces him that solving this case could save their partnership. Nick finally agrees to help. During Zootopia's centennial celebration, celebrities flood into the glamorous Zootopia Gala. Judy spots the suspicious van parked outside. Disguised in elegant attire, she and Nick slip inside through a service entrance. They notice the Linksley Journal secured in a private exhibit area. Using his classic con artist skills, Nick sneaks them closer. Just as Judy approaches the journal, Chief Bogo unexpectedly appears, causing her to bump into Hopper. Meanwhile, Nick slips, notices another piece of reptile skin, and tries contacting Judy without success. Looking up, he sees a figure perched above on a chandelier, but before he can react, Bogo catches him. Suddenly, chaos erupts. A massive snake drops onto the stage, sending guests into a panic. The serpent attacks Milton Linksley, seizes the journal, and attempts to escape. Judy pursues him through the building. The snake opens the journal case with Milton's reluctant assistance. When Judy corners the snake, he insists he is not the villain. He claims the Linksley family is responsible for past crimes and that the journal holds proof needed to bring his kind back to Zootopia. Before Judy can fully process his words, Nick strikes the snake, knocking him unconscious. Moments later, the Linksleys arrive and coldly demand that the officers kill the reptile. Judy immediately senses that something isn't right. She and Nick step in front of the snake, refusing to let him be harmed. As the snake regains consciousness, he accidentally bites Chief Bogo, triggering instant panic. Officers rush into the hall. In the confusion, the snake is hurled from the balcony and swiftly snatched by a biker who speeds away. Suspicion quickly falls on Judy and Nick, with other officers accusing them of helping the Reptile escape. Judy grabs the journal, and the pair make a desperate getaway by sliding down an icy chute, smashing straight into Mr. Big's vehicle. Mr. Big's guards capture them on the spot. News outlets explode with reports claiming Judy and Nick assisted a dangerous criminal, turning them into fugitives overnight. Meanwhile, Chief Bogo receives an antidote for the bite. Milton Linksley and his siblings pressure the mayor, demanding that Judy, Nick, and the snake be executed and the journal destroyed. When the mayor hesitates, they threaten to expose him and strip away his authority. Left with no choice, he orders the ZPD to hunt all 3 targets. Mr. Big secretly moves Judy and Nick to a warehouse, provides them with new identities, and hands them a car to escape. When Judy explains the Linksley's deception, Mr. Big warns her that the family has a long history of murder and betrayal. Still, Judy refuses to back down. She is determined to protect the snake and uncover what the journal truly contains. Fufu suggests seeking help from Nibble. When Nibble arrives, she agrees to assist and guides them to Marsh Market, explaining that many reptiles, especially lizards, hide there. Because reptiles were long ago erased from city records, she leads them even deeper, onto an abandoned ferry that secretly shelters a hidden reptile community. Police soon begin sweeping the area. Inside the ship, Nick admits he feels uneasy around reptiles, and Judy lightly mocks his nerves. A concealed doorway opens, revealing dozens of reptile residents. Nick instantly panics at the sight. Nibble introduces them to Jesus, who welcomes them with questionable hospitality, offering worms and pulling small pranks. When Jesus examines the journal, he explains that its contents can only be read using reptile heat vision. He then reveals a painful history. Long ago, a tourist's mysterious death was blamed on reptiles, leading to their banishment. With reptiles gone, the Linksleys seized their land and expanded their empire. Now history appears to be repeating itself. Before more can be explained, police storm the ferry. Jesus ushers Judy and Nick through a hidden escape tunnel, convinced they still have a chance to save the city. Suddenly, Gary snatches the journal and bolts. Judy gives chase onto the water in a small boat, while Nick struggles to keep up. Police pursue them across the canals. The chase ends violently as all 3 are sucked into massive drainage pipes, gasping for air. Judy nearly reaches Gary but loses consciousness. Nick manages to open a hatch and rescue Judy and himself, while Gary slips away. Later, Judy discovers a bag inside the pipe, containing a small book marked with a flower symbol. 2 goats appear and explain that these rare flowers grow high on a mountain near an old honeymoon lodge. Judy and Nick begin climbing the mountain using a rope. Nick complains the entire way and jokes by replaying Judy's own recorded voice lines. During the climb, their recorder slips and shatters. They reach the lodge just as police arrive behind them. Officers find the broken recorder, confirming Judy and Nick's trail. Inside the lodge, Judy finds more shed snakeskin. Nick nearly falls from a ledge and warns that police are closing in. Judy uncovers an old newspaper revealing Ebenezer Linksley's plan to expand Tundra Town by capturing snakes. She also discovers evidence that reptiles once had their own neighborhoods, along with a photograph of Gary's family. Nick urges Judy to abandon the case, terrified that they're heading toward their deaths. Judy refuses. She insists someone has to expose the truth, and it has to be them. A violent police assault tears the lodge apart. Nick is captured. Judy is swept away on floating debris. Pobert appears and rescues Judy alongside Gary. Now Judy faces an impossible choice: save Nick or continue chasing the truth. Believing Nick can escape on his own, Judy stays with Gary. Police fire tranquilizer darts, but Gary pulls Judy to safety as the lodge collapses. Judy later wakes to learn that Gary has been captured. She believes everything is lost. Mayor Windenser interrogates Nick, but he refuses to speak and is imprisoned. Milton orders Marsh Market to be seized and demands harsh punishment for Nick, whom he claims helped cause Judy's death. Kitty presents Pobert's hair as supposed evidence, and Milton orders Pobert hunted down. On the run, Gary reassures Judy that they will save Nick. He then coughs up the small book he swallowed earlier. They reach Pobert's hideout, where Pobert explains that Gary once wrote him a letter asking for help. After learning the truth, Pobert secretly smuggled documents to Gary to expose what really happened to the reptiles. Judy is overwhelmed with guilt for leaving Nick behind, but Pobert comforts her and reminds her that Nick would never give up on her. They light a fire so Gary can use his heat vision on the journal. Hidden text appears, revealing a shocking truth. Gary's great-grandmother, Agnes, was the real creator of Zootopia and the original designer of the weather wall. She partnered with Ebenezer Linksley, who later stole her work by replacing her name with his own in the journal. Agnes's maid discovered the forgery and was murdered. Terrified, Agnes remained silent. Ebenezer then spread false stories about reptiles, driving them out and believing the truth would be buried forever. However, the maid secretly preserved the original patent, ensuring the truth could one day be revealed. Gary reveals that he knows where reptiles once lived. Judy shows him a photograph featuring a tall tower and realizes that restoring electricity to the abandoned reptile district could lead them to Agnes's old home and the missing patent. Their new objective becomes clear: reactivate the tower and uncover the truth. Unbeknownst to them, Milton secretly tracks Judy through her phone. Elsewhere, Nick sits alone in a jail cell where he unexpectedly runs into Nibble. She asks what happened between him and Judy. Nick admits that Judy believes they're fundamentally different, and he's terrified of losing her because of it. Moved by his honesty, Nibble secretly fashions a key and helps him break out. As alarms blare, they search for an exit but accidentally open the main gates instead, triggering a massive prison breakout. Criminals scatter, stealing police vehicles and flooding the streets with chaos. Among the escapees is Bellwether herself. Nick jumps into a getaway car driven by a lightning-fast motorist, who turns out to be Flash. Meanwhile, Judy, Gary, and Pobert approach the massive weather wall. Judy explains the plan. Enter through the access door, locate the master switch, and power up the long-dead tower. Once active, they can continue searching for the patent. Nick contacts Clawhauser, begging him to locate Judy by hacking into Paul's computer. Clawhauser distracts Paul with small talk and attempts to break into the system, only to discover the password is ridiculously tiny. Judy's group reaches the weather wall just as police units arrive, having traced her phone's signal. Realizing the danger, Judy smashes her phone to end the tracking. They sprint through the crowded Mammal Festival as officers chase them. Judy briefly encounters Gazelle, who silently signals her support, and she fights her way past zebra officers blocking the path. Nick learns Judy's location at the weather wall entrance. The Linksleys learn this as well and order officers to stop them at any cost, including firing tranquilizer darts. As Judy and the others race toward the door, darts fly through the air. Judy shields Pobert until Nick suddenly arrives in Flash's car, skidding in and pulling them to safety. Judy, Gary, and Pobert make it inside the wall, but Nick is left stranded outside. Inside, Judy locates a door connected to Tundra Town's climate controls. She restores the system and begins searching for the tower buried beneath heavy snow. After pushing forward, they finally find it. Through surveillance monitors, Judy spots Nick trapped outside and prepares to help when Nibble unexpectedly lets him in. Everything seems hopeful until Pobert reveals his true colors. He injects Judy with a powerful serum and throws Gary into the deadly freezing zone, leaving him to die. Pobert coldly explains that he has always been treated as worthless by his family, and by destroying the patent, he believes he can finally prove his value. Nick is his next target. Judy insists Pobert isn't evil, but he walks away. The drug begins shutting down Judy's body. Gary struggles through the cold, barely conscious. Nick searches frantically inside the wall. Pobert ambushes Nibble and injects her as well. Judy watches helplessly through security cameras. Nick enters a chamber filled with violent, shifting climate zones and finally confronts Pobert, who is heavily armed. Gary tells Judy she has already changed history, just as his grandmother dreamed when she designed Zootopia. He crawls close, using her body heat to survive. Judy loses consciousness. Police forces flood the area. Nick and Gary fight desperately but are quickly overwhelmed. During the struggle, Gary notices antivenom inside Pobert's bag. Nick battles Pobert while Gary shouts for him to grab it. The floor begins cracking beneath their feet, and the antivenom slides toward the edge. Nick declares that Judy is worth everything. Risking his life, he dives and throws the antivenom to Gary. Gary injects Judy, reviving her. The ice collapses. Judy lunges forward and grabs Nick just as Pobert plunges into the depths below. They cling to each other. Nick admits he doesn't care if they're different. He cares about her, even if he doesn't always know how to say it. Their moment is cut short when Pobert resurfaces on a snowmobile, racing toward Agnes's home to destroy the patent. The four give chase. Pobert contacts his father, confessing everything about the stolen patent, but Judy and Nick reach the location in time. Nibble and Gary confront the Linksleys while Judy and Nick pursue Pobert. Using a truck to smash through dense brush, Judy and Nick corner him. Pobert overpowers them until Gary and Nibble arrive and turn the fight around. The mayor, finally done with the Linksleys' corruption, personally orders their arrest. Pobert is taken into custody. Later, Gary leads the group to the long-abandoned Reptile district. They find Agnes's old home. Inside, her inventions and designs remain preserved. Gary opens a hidden box and discovers the original patent. Pobert suddenly reappears, attempting to burn the house down, but police intervene once more and arrest him for good. News spreads across Zootopia. Judy and Nick, along with Gary and Nibble, have exposed the Linksley family's massive fraud. The stolen patent is returned. Marsh Market is officially restored as part of Zootopia. Reptiles are welcomed back into the city. Gary is reunited with his family. Judy and Nick are honored as heroes. Nick gifts Judy a brand new cassette recorder. The film ends with the duo heading out together on their next mission, tracking down the prisoners who escaped during the breakout. Analysis: what if I told you, the city you thought you understood, the world that promised anyone could be anything, is about to be tested like never before. Zootopia is back, but this time it's not just about predators and prey. It's not just about dreams and discrimination. It's about identity, belonging, and what happens when the truth hides in plain sight. When the original Zootopia released, it surprised everyone. It wasn't just another talking animals movie. It was a smart detective story, a social commentary, and an emotional journey disguised as a family film. Now, nearly a decade later, Zootopia 2 steps into even deeper territory. Bigger mysteries, darker questions, new species, new districts, and a partnership that will be pushed further than ever before. Judy Hopps is no longer the rookie cop chasing a dream. Nick Wilde is no longer just the charming hustler with a good heart. They're veterans now. And the case they're about to face could change Zootopia forever. In this video, we're breaking down everything: the story, the themes, the hidden meanings, the symbolism, the ending, and why Zootopia 2 might be one of Disney's most ambitious animated sequels ever made. So buckle up, because beneath the colorful fur and fast-paced comedy lies a story about feared control and the courage to challenge a system that no longer works. This is Zootopia 2. Zootopia 2 is a 2025 animated adventure from Walt Disney Animation Studios, and the long-awaited continuation of one of Disney's most intelligent modern franchises. Directed once again by the creative minds who shaped the original world, this sequel brings back the voices we fell in love with: Ginnifer Goodwin as the endlessly determined Judy Hopps, and Jason Bateman as the smooth-talking, sharp-witted Nick Wilde. But this isn't simply a return, it's an expansion. The story takes place after the events of the first film, in a Zootopia that has grown larger, more crowded, and more complicated. New districts, new species, new social tensions. On the surface, the city still looks bright, colorful, bustling with life, but beneath that polished exterior, something is wrong. When a mysterious newcomer enters the city, a chain reaction begins. Whispers spread, fear grows. Old prejudices quietly resurface. And suddenly, Judy and Nick are pulled into a case that doesn't just involve a crime, it involves the soul of Zootopia itself. Without revealing spoilers, Zootopia 2 blends mystery, comedy, action, and emotional drama into a tightly woven story. It's funny when it needs to be, thrilling when it matters, and surprisingly heavy when you least expect it. This isn't just a children's movie, it's a detective story wrapped in animation, a social mirror disguised as entertainment, and a character-driven journey about what it means to truly belong. At roughly 1 hour and 40 minutes, the film uses its runtime to deepen relationships, expand the world, and challenge everything we thought we knew about Zootopia. Because this time, the biggest danger isn't outside the city. It's already inside. On the surface, Zootopia 2 looks like a colorful animated comedy, talking animals, fast-paced jokes, high-energy chases, but underneath that playful exterior, this movie is something much deeper. At its core, Zootopia 2 is a mystery thriller, a detective story where every clue matters, every lie has consequences, and every answer opens the door to a more disturbing question. It's also a buddy cop film. Two completely different personalities, forced to rely on each other, trust each other, and sometimes confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. But more than anything, Zootopia 2 is a story about identity, about who society tells you that you are versus who you actually choose to become. The film explores fear, not the loud, obvious kind, but the quiet fear, the fear of change, the fear of outsiders. The fear that if the world keeps evolving, you might be left behind. Another major theme is belonging. What happens when you live in a city built on the idea that anyone can be anything, but reality doesn't always reflect that promise? Some characters are desperate to fit in, others are tired of pretending, and some use fear as a weapon to control those around them. Emotionally, the film walks a careful line. It delivers warmth and humor. But it's not afraid to get uncomfortable. Moments of lighthearted fun are followed by moments of quiet reflection. Jokes give way to hard conversations. Smiles fade into doubt. This tonal balance is intentional. Because Zootopia 2 isn't just trying to entertain, it's trying to challenge. It asks, can a society truly change, or does it only change on the surface? Can trust survive in a world built on suspicion? And most importantly, can two individuals still make a difference when the system itself feels broken? That's what gives Zootopia 2 its power. It's not just about solving a case. It's about questioning the world that created the case in the first place. The story begins in a version of Zootopia that looks peaceful. The trains still run on time. The streets are still crowded. The city still smiles for the cameras. Judy Hopps is no longer the small-town bunny trying to prove herself. She's a respected officer now. Nick Wilde is no longer running hustles on street corners. He's officially her partner. But progress doesn't mean perfection. Because even in a city built on tolerance, tension never truly disappears. Everything changes with the arrival of a mysterious new figure, a creature that doesn't fit neatly into any category Zootopia has seen before. Whispers begin almost immediately. Some citizens claim this newcomer is dangerous. Others claim they're hiding something. Rumors travel faster than facts, and fear spreads faster than truth. When a series of strange incidents rock multiple districts, Judy and Nick are assigned to investigate. At first, the case looks simple. A few disappearances, some damaged infrastructure, conflicting eyewitness reports. But nothing adds up. Every lead contradicts the last. As they follow the trail, Judy and Nick are forced out of their familiar comfort zones, into underground markets, into forgotten neighborhoods, into parts of Zootopia most citizens pretend don't exist. Along the way, they meet new faces, some helpful, some suspicious, some hiding secrets of their own. Slowly, a disturbing pattern emerges. The incidents aren't random. Someone is pulling strings. Someone is deliberately turning communities against each other. The deeper Judy digs, the more she begins to realize something unsettling. This case isn't about one criminal. It's about a system that quietly benefits from fear. Nick, meanwhile, starts noticing something else. The same tricks that once trapped him as a hustler are now being used on a city-wide scale. Misinformation, distraction, selective truth. Judy wants to expose the mastermind as fast as possible. Nick wants to understand why the city keeps falling for the same lies. This difference in approach begins to strain their partnership. Not because they don't trust each other, but because they care too much. Their investigation finally leads them to the heart of the conspiracy, a powerful group manipulating public perception, using fear to control policy, using chaos to expand influence, and using a misunderstood outsider as a convenient scapegoat. The so-called threat the city fears turns out to be another victim, a pawn. Someone pushed into the spotlight so others could operate in the shadows. Judy and Nick realize the real enemy isn't a monster, it's a narrative, a carefully crafted story designed to divide. The final act becomes a race against time. Not just to stop a crime, but to reveal the truth before the city tears itself apart. In doing so, Judy must confront her own blind spots. Nick must confront the parts of himself that once accepted a broken system. And together, they must decide what kind of officers, what kind of partners, and what kind of symbols they truly want to be. The final moments of Zootopia 2 don't end with a massive explosion. They don't end with a city in ruins. They end with something far more powerful. The truth. Judy and Nick succeed in exposing the network manipulating fear across Zootopia. The evidence goes public. The lies collapse. The so-called monster that everyone was afraid of is revealed to be exactly what Judy suspected all along. Not a villain, not a conqueror, not a threat, just someone who never stood a chance inside a system designed to judge first and listen later. The real villains aren't creatures with claws or fangs. They're individuals in positions of influence, officials who weaponized prejudice, leaders who used panic as a tool for control. When they are arrested, the city doesn't instantly become perfect, and that's important. Zootopia doesn't magically heal. Some citizens apologize, others stay silent. Some refuse to accept the truth at all, because real change is slow. Messy, uncomfortable. Judy's victory isn't that she saved the city, it's that she forced the city to look at itself. Nick's victory isn't that he helped crack the case, it's that he refused to become cynical. He chose hope even when experience told him hope was dangerous. The misunderstood outsider is given a chance to start over, not as a symbol, not as a political tool, but as an individual. Which ties directly back to the film's core message. You are not what others fear. You are not what rumors say. You are what you choose to become. The final scene mirrors the first movie in a quiet way. Judy and Nick stand together. Not as rookie and ex-hustler, not as optimist and skeptic, but as equals, partners, friends. The city stretches out before them, still flawed, still complicated, still worth fighting for. And the movie leaves us with a simple but powerful idea. A better world doesn't start with perfect people. It starts with people willing to admit they were wrong. That's the real ending of Zootopia 2, not the defeat of a villain. But the beginning of accountability. One of the smartest things Zootopia 2 does is hide its deepest messages in plain sight, not through dialogue, not through exposition, but through visuals, background details. In quiet moments most viewers barely notice on first watch. Early in the film, the camera repeatedly frames Zootopia as a city built in layers, bright towers on top, shadowed alleyways below. This isn't just world building. It's visual storytelling. The higher you go, the more power you have. The lower you live, the less visible you become. A silent reminder that inequality doesn't always announce itself, it simply exists. Another recurring visual motif is reflections. Characters are often shown through glass, windows, mirrors, puddles. This represents identity conflict, who a character appears to be versus who they truly are. Judy is frequently framed with reflections during moments of doubt, Nick during moments of temptation. The outsider character is rarely shown in reflection at all, suggesting they've never been allowed to define themselves. Only defined by others. There are also subtle callbacks to the first Zootopia. A small poster in the background reads, "Try everything," but it's faded, peeling, partially torn, symbolizing how the city's original optimism has worn thin over time. In one scene, a newscaster uses almost the exact same phrasing that was once used to describe predators in the first movie. This parallel isn't accidental. It shows how history repeats, just with new targets. Even character color palettes carry meaning. Judy's uniform gradually shifts toward warmer tones as she becomes more empathetic. Nick's clothing becomes simpler, losing flashy elements, reflecting his growing honesty. Meanwhile, characters tied to manipulation wear colder, sharper colors, blues, grays, silvers, emotionally distant shades. There's even a blink and you miss it Easter egg, a newspaper headline referencing an avian transit proposal. A small nod suggesting birds exist beyond Zootopia's borders, quietly expanding the universe. The biggest hidden detail, though, is how often background characters are shown listening to rumors. Phones out, screens glowing, whispers traveling. Almost nobody is actually verifying anything. This reinforces the film's central warning. Lies don't need to be convincing, they only need to be repeated. Zootopia 2 rewards viewers who pay attention, because beneath its bright animation, every wall, every poster, every reflection is telling a story. The world of Zootopia 2 didn't just grow on screen, it grew behind the scenes too. Disney's animation team spent years expanding the map of Zootopia, designing brand new districts, new climates, new architecture styles, and even new animal-specific infrastructure, from snake-friendly transportation tubes to amphibian water highways. One surprising fact, the film originally opened with a completely different sequence. An intense smuggling operation at sea, featuring rodents, illegal cargo, and a mysterious reptile silhouette in the shadows. The scene looked impressive, but the filmmakers ultimately cut it, not because it was bad, but because it revealed too much too soon. They wanted the mystery to unfold slowly, so the audience would question everything. The voice casting also went through careful selection. The actor voicing the newcomer character recorded multiple emotional variations for key scenes, some more threatening, some more sympathetic. The final edit blended performances, so viewers would constantly feel unsure about who this character truly was. Jason Bateman has mentioned in interviews that Nick's dialogue was intentionally written with fewer jokes than in the first film, because Nick is no longer hiding behind humor. He's more honest, more grounded, more serious. Ginnifer Goodwin worked closely with the directors to adjust Judy's tone. She speaks with more confidence, less nervous energy, fewer rushed sentences, subtle changes that reflect Judy's growth. Another fun detail, many background characters are animated using blended animal motion, meaning artists studied multiple species and combined their movement styles. This creates creatures that feel believable, even if they don't exist in real life. The production team also consulted sociologists, not to push a political message, but to make sure the fictional social dynamics felt authentic. The goal wasn't to lecture, it was to reflect. And here's a small but charming Easter egg. During a crowd shot, you can spot a giraffe wearing a tiny tie. It's a quiet nod to the DMV sloth scene from the first movie, a reminder that humor still lives in Zootopia's DNA. Every frame of Zootopia 2 shows intention. Nothing is accidental, nothing is random. Which is why the film feels so dense, so alive, and so carefully constructed. Every sequel faces the same impossible question. Should it repeat what worked, or should it risk becoming something new? Zootopia 2 chooses the harder path. Evolution, compared to the original Zootopia, the first film was about discovering prejudice, about realizing it exists, about seeing how easily fear can be planted. Zootopia 2 assumes you already understand that. This time the question isn't, does discrimination happen? The question is, what happens after we admit it? The original movie followed a rookie chasing a dream. The sequel follows a professional carrying responsibility. Judy in the first film wanted to prove she belonged. Judy in the second film wants to prove the system can be better. Nick in the first film was learning to care. Nick in the second film is learning to lead. Tonally, Zootopia 2 is more restrained, less slapstick, more deliberate. Jokes still land, but they serve character, not distraction. When compared to other animated sequels like Frozen II, Toy Story 4, or Inside Out 2, Zootopia 2 feels closer to a crime thriller than a fairy tale. It uses animation as a disguise for a grounded detective story. If you place it next to buddy cop films like Lethal Weapon or Rush Hour, you'll see familiar DNA, two opposites, clashing philosophies, forced cooperation. But unlike those films, the conflict here isn't just personal, it's systemic, and that's what sets Zootopia 2 apart. It's not trying to outdo the first film's charm, it's trying to outgrow it. Some viewers will prefer the lighter tone of the original, others will appreciate the sequel's maturity. Neither approach is wrong, they're different chapters of the same journey. The first film asked you to open your eyes. The second film asks you, what are you going to do now that they're open? When Zootopia 2 finally arrived, it didn't quietly slip into theaters. It arrived with weight. Fans who grew up with the original showed up in massive numbers. Parents brought their kids, young adults brought nostalgia, older audiences came out of curiosity, and something interesting happened. People didn't just talk about the animation, they talked about the message. Audiences praised the film's maturity. Many were surprised by how bold the story felt, not darker for shock value, not heavier for attention, but deeper, more intentional. Viewers connected strongly to Judy and Nick's evolution. Not as cartoon heroes, but as flawed professionals trying to do the right thing inside a broken system. Social media quickly filled with discussions. Some called it one of Disney's most ambitious sequels. Others said it felt more like a graphic novel brought to life than a traditional animated comedy. Critics largely applauded the film's storytelling. They highlighted its layered script, its confident direction, and its willingness to trust the audience's intelligence. But not everyone agreed. Some viewers felt the movie asked too many big questions for a family film. Others preferred the lighter tone of the first Zootopia, and that division is important. Because movies that play it safe rarely spark debate, Zootopia 2 does, which places it in an interesting category, not universally comforting, not universally easy, but undeniably memorable. For many fans, it's underrated. Not because people dislike it, but because its depth isn't always obvious on first viewing. It's a film that grows after the credits roll, a film that gets better the more you think about it. Love it or question it, one thing is clear. Zootopia 2 didn't fade into the background. It became part of a larger conversation. And that's exactly what this franchise was always meant to do. So where does Zootopia 2 ultimately land? Not as a simple sequel. Not as a nostalgia play, but as a statement. At its best, Zootopia 2 delivers rich world-building, stronger character maturity, a mystery that respects the audience, and themes that linger long after the screen fades to black. Judy Hopps feels more human than ever, not because she's perfect, but because she isn't. Nick Wilde feels earned, not redeemed overnight, but shaped by experience. The animation is gorgeous. The city feels alive. Every district has personality. Every frame feels intentional, but the film isn't flawless. Its heavier tone may not connect with every viewer. Some may miss the constant comedic energy of the original. Others may find the message challenging rather than comforting. And honestly, that's okay, because Zootopia 2 isn't trying to be easy. It's trying to be honest. This is a movie for fans who love the original, viewers who enjoy smart mysteries, audiences who appreciate animated films with substance, and anyone who believes stories can entertain while still asking important questions. My final recommendation. Zootopia 2 is worth your time, worth your attention, worth a second viewing, not because it tells you what to think, but because it invites you to think. And in today's world, that might be the most powerful thing a family film can do. REVIEWS. The original Disney animated hit from 2016 was a massive success and even walked away with an Oscar. So when news broke that a sequel was finally arriving nearly 10 years later, my curiosity was instantly sparked. I couldn't help but wonder whether the magic would still be there, and for the most part, I was eager to find out. The story opens in Zootropolis, where only a week has passed since Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde officially became partners at the Zootropolis Police Department. While they work well on paper, their opposite personalities create non-stop friction. Their constant bickering pushes Chief Bogo to issue an ultimatum. Either they attend partnership counseling, or they'll be split up. During a bust on a smuggling operation, Judy uncovers a mysterious piece of shed snakeskin. Convinced that a snake may be operating in the city, Judy becomes obsessed with tracking it down. This leads her and Nick to go undercover at the Zootopia Gala, a grand celebration honoring the city's 100th anniversary. The event is hosted by the powerful Linksley family, descendants of Zootropolis' celebrated founder. At the gala, Judy meets Paubert, the socially awkward youngest member of the Linksley clan. Meanwhile, Nick spots a shadowy figure lurking in the crowd, soon revealed to be a pit viper named Gary Desnake. Chaos erupts when Gary kidnaps the Linksley patriarch, Milton, in order to obtain an old journal tied to the creation of the weather walls, the massive system that controls the city's climate districts. Judy corners Gary, but instead of attacking her, he insists that snakes are misunderstood and that the journal holds proof that reptiles were unjustly erased from Zootropolis' history. Before Judy can process this, Milton accuses her and Nick of aiding the snake and orders their arrest. Things spiral further when Gary accidentally bites Chief Bogo, leaving him hospitalized. With tensions high, Nick and Judy flee with the journal, while Gary is taken by an unknown motorcyclist. Now on the run, the duo turn to underworld boss Mr. Big and his daughter Frou Frou for help. They're pointed toward Nibbles Maplestick, a conspiracy-loving beaver who specializes in reptile lore. Nibbles leads them to Marsh Market, a hidden district where reptiles secretly live in exile. There, a basilisk named Jessus reveals that reptiles once lived openly in Zootropolis until their homeland was buried during the construction of Tundra Town. Before Judy and Nick can dig deeper, Gary reappears, retrieves the journal, and escapes through underground waterways. Following clues, Judy and Nick reach an abandoned mountain lodge where Judy uncovers evidence showing reptiles and mammals once coexisted peacefully. ZPD officers catch up, arrest Nick, and nearly capture Judy, until she's rescued by Gary and his mysterious biker ally, who turns out to be Paubert. Gary explains that his great-grandmother, Agnes, actually founded Zootropolis. Her work was stolen by Ebenezer Linksley, who framed her for murder after she tried to protect the original weather wall patent. The truth would shatter the Linksley legacy. Nick later escapes custody with Nibbles' help and reunites with Judy at the weather walls. Using an old lighthouse, they locate the buried reptile district and determine the patent is hidden at Agnes's former home. Unfortunately, Paubert reveals his true intentions. He plans to destroy the patent so he can finally gain his family's approval. Paubert poisons Judy with snake venom, tosses Gary into the freezing snow, and steals the anti-venom. A showdown erupts atop the weather walls where Nick battles Paubert. The anti-venom is recovered, Judy is cured, and although Nick and Paubert fall from the structure, Nick survives thanks to Judy's quick action. With emotions laid bare, Judy and Nick finally talk through their fears and insecurities, strengthening their bond. At Agnes's house, the patent is recovered. Nibbles and Mayor Windenser prevent the Linksleys from destroying the evidence, and the family is arrested. Justice is served, Judy and Nick are cleared, Chief Bogo recovers, reptiles are welcomed back into society, and Agnes is officially recognized as Zootropolis' true founder. The film closes with Judy and Nick jumping straight into another case, tracking down escaped criminals, including a familiar foe from their past. A brief stinger after the credits shows Judy alone in her apartment, replaying a recorded message from Nick through her carrot-shaped pen where he shyly confesses his feelings. As she listens, a lone bird feather drifts onto her windowsill, a small, intriguing moment that feels like it could be planting the seeds for another sequel. The voice cast is stacked with talent and fun celebrity choices. Shakira returns as the glamorous pop icon Gazelle, Quinta Brunson voices the upbeat quokka therapist Dr. Fuzby, and Nate Torrance once again brings warmth to fan-favorite Cheetah Benjamin Clawhauser. Bonnie Hunt and Don Lake reprise their roles as Judy's loving parents, while Michelle Gomez and David Fain add flair as Razorback officers. There's also a long list of entertaining side characters voiced by stars like Jean Reno, Alan Tudyk, Macaulay Culkin, Brenda Song, John Leguizamo, Tommy Chong, Raymond S. Percy, and even Dwayne Johnson as the accident-prone Dick named Zeke. Across the board, performances are strong, the new animals are charming, and the animation remains vibrant and visually rich. The idea of a massive city where every species lives together, while hiding uncomfortable truths beneath the surface, continues to be a compelling concept. The story sprinkles in thoughtful commentary about society, culture, and politics without becoming heavy-handed. There are plenty of playful homages to classic films such as The Godfather, The Silence of the Lambs, and The Shining, and the humor lands often enough to keep things light. Overall, it still works as a fun animated buddy cop adventure, and it wouldn't be surprising if another installment eventually follows. It's an entertaining experience. My wife and I caught Zootopia 2, 2025 in theaters, and the film opens with Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps riding high after being celebrated for their heroic past achievements. However, their next assignment quickly spirals out of control when they uncover traces of something unseen in Zootopia for nearly a century, a snake. Even after being disciplined for their mistake, they can't ignore the clues and begin digging deeper into this mysterious presence and the secrets tied to it. The movie is co-written and co-directed by Jared Bush and Byron Howard, the same creative duo behind Encanto. Jason Bateman, Jennifer Goodwin, Ki Hai Kwan, Idris Elba, Danny Trejo, and Quinta Brunson headline a strong voice lineup. As a family, we absolutely loved the original Zootopia, which made us eager for this sequel. Sadly, while this film has moments of emotional weight, it doesn't quite reach the same heights. It touches on meaningful topics like therapy, communication, teamwork, and how deception can shape prejudices between groups. However, many of these ideas feel softened or rushed, making them less powerful than they should be. We did watch the movie in 3D, and that added a lot to certain sequences. The marshland scene was especially impressive, and Danny Trejo and Idris Elba bring real personality to their supporting roles. I also appreciated the Coke Bear gag and the clear Shining reference. In the end, Zootopia 2 contains several standout moments, but also continues Disney's recent pattern of underwhelming sequels. Nick and Judy remain the first fox and rabbit duo in the Zootropolis Police Department. Despite previously exposing a citywide conspiracy that reached the highest levels of power, Chief Bogo insists on keeping them stuck in low-ranking roles. Unsurprisingly, they stumble onto yet another conspiracy and once again struggle to convince anyone to take them seriously. This sequel definitely mirrors the structure of the first film, but for the most part, it does so competently. New characters, especially the Z-Bros, add humor, and the movie introduces some visually appealing locations. The story also reinforces familiar lessons about trust, loyalty, family, and not judging others based on assumptions. That said, some elements didn't work for me. Chief Bogo, in particular, becomes frustrating. His constant resistance to Judy's growth either makes him seem wildly incompetent or paints him as biased in a way that feels uncomfortable for someone in his position. The movie is overflowing with jokes, but the breakneck pacing means many of them pass by too quickly to leave an impact. One standout exception is the snow-covered hedge maze, where the camera pulls back and the music echoes the iconic Shining theme, a clever moment that lands beautifully. Several jokes like this clearly cater more to adults than kids. Lastly, a couple of major sequences take place in dark, gloomy environments, which dampens the visual energy and doesn't fully take advantage of animation as a medium. Zootopia 2 isn't a bad movie, but it never quite reaches the heights of its predecessor. Disney's original Zootopia became a worldwide phenomenon, charming audiences with its clever social commentary, imaginative world, and strong character work. Its enormous success practically guaranteed a sequel, especially in an era where Disney frequently revisits proven franchises. Unfortunately, while this follow-up is serviceable, it ultimately feels like a step down. The familiar animal Metropolis returns with another detective-style adventure, yet there's little here that sparks genuine excitement about where the series might go next, unless its box office performance forces a third installment. This time around, the story centers on a deeply buried secret from Zootopia's past, uncovered by Judy Hopps, while her partnership with Nick Wilde faces serious strain. Though the film delivers bursts of energy and occasional fun, the emotional moments rarely connect in a meaningful way. Set after the first film, Judy, Jennifer Goodwin, and Nick, Jason Bateman, are still working to protect their city. When Judy discovers information that could shake Zootopia to its core, officials move quickly to silence her. Nick, fearing the danger involved, urges caution and insists the risk isn't worth losing their lives over. Their disagreement drives a wedge between them, pushing Judy to investigate on her own. Matters grow worse when Nick is taken captive, and Judy suddenly finds herself hunted by the very system she serves. The central question becomes whether she can outthink everyone long enough to expose the truth. Writer Jared Bush clearly attempts to channel the spirit of the original, fast-paced chases, mystery elements, playful humor, and buddy cop dynamics, but instead of reinventing the formula, he mostly recycles it. The result is a narrative that feels overly familiar. The introduction of snakes as major players does inject some intrigue, especially since it plays with audience expectations, and the twist surrounding them is one of the film's more satisfying surprises. The brisk pacing keeps things moving, and the runtime just over 90 minutes prevents boredom, yet many jokes fall flat, the drama feels muted, and the quirky magic of the first film is largely missing. Even the finale struggles to deliver a strong emotional payoff. Voice performances remain solid across the board, with a stacked cast including Goodwin, Bateman, Ki Hai Kwan, Fortune Famester, Andy Samberg, David Strathairn, Shakira, Idris Elba, Patrick Warburton, Quinta Brunson, Danny Trejo, Alan Tudyk, Nate Torrance, Don Lake, Bonnie Hunt, Jenny Slate, and others. Everyone does a competent job bringing their characters to life, but no single performance truly steals the show. Visually, the film maintains the bright, polished look fans expect, though the environments lack the sense of discovery that once made Zootopia feel so expansive. Sound design and editing are perfectly adequate, and the visual effects get the job done, but very few moments inspire awe. The final action set piece, meant to feel epic, instead comes across as rushed and surprisingly restrained. Directors Jared Bush and Byron Howard play things far too safely. Zootopia 2 isn't disastrous, it's just disappointingly average. Some viewers will still enjoy revisiting this world simply because it's familiar, but the sequel never pushes itself to be more daring, more emotional, or more imaginative. It could have aimed higher, it simply chose not to. Zootopia 2, 2025, follows Judy and Nick as they go undercover to investigate a mysterious new reptilian resident named Gary Desnick. Having watched the first film for the first time shortly before seeing this sequel, I genuinely enjoyed both, and I can honestly say I had a good time with this one as well. On the positive side, it's great to see these characters back together on another mission to protect their city. Goodwin and Bateman still have excellent chemistry, and Ki Hai Kwan is a welcome addition as Gary, bringing both humor and heart to the role. The supporting cast is also impressively packed, featuring voices like Fortune Famester, Andy Samberg, David Strathairn, Shakira, Idris Elba, Patrick Warburton, Quinta Brunson, Danny Trejo, Alan Tudyk, Nate Torrance, Don Lake, Bonnie Hunt, Jenny Slate, and even Roman Reigns and CM Punk. In the end, Zootopia 2 is enjoyable in small doses, but it never feels essential. It's a comfortable return to a beloved world, just not the bold evolution it should have been. The sequel delivers a surprisingly strong narrative that gives its central characters space to grow and explore new territory. Judy and Nick aren't just repeating old tricks this time, they're placed in situations that challenge their confidence and their partnership in fresh ways. The action sequences are energetic and stylish, capturing the same lively momentum that made the first film so engaging. On top of that, the pacing is tight, keeping the story moving quickly without feeling rushed. That said, the main drawback comes from the villain's master plan, which feels a little too close to what we've seen before. While there's a slight variation added, the big reveal is fairly easy to predict if you're paying attention. Still, these issues don't derail the experience in any major way. Overall, Zootopia 2, 2025, stands as a highly enjoyable follow-up that justifies its long wait. It feels like a fully realized feature film, rather than a collection of episodic ideas stitched together. Set shortly after the events of the first movie, the sequel continues the franchise's tradition of using its animated world to reflect real social issues, this time shifting focus toward historical narratives, power structures, and how societies shape their own myths. The storyline follows Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde as newly celebrated partners who start to become a bit too sure of themselves. After a failed operation against smugglers exposes cracks in their teamwork, they're assigned a mysterious case involving the possible return of a snake species believed to have vanished long ago. Their investigation uncovers uncomfortable truths about Zootopia's past and forces them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about their city. Visually, the film is stunning. Every frame is packed with background details, clever visual jokes, and subtle references. There are playful nods to classic thrillers and horror films, and the animation team clearly had fun layering these homages throughout the movie. The world feels bigger, richer, and more alive than ever before. The voice cast does solid work across the board. While many actors remain within their familiar performance styles, the ensemble is strong, and even brief cameo roles are handled by talented performers. Returning leads bring warmth and chemistry, making Judy and Nick's evolving relationship believable and engaging. The plot doesn't reinvent storytelling conventions, and some twists are easy to anticipate, but the movie's sense of fun helps carry it forward. It balances humor, action, and emotional beats effectively, even if it may not leave a lasting impact that demands immediate rewatching. The writers do an admirable job expanding the lore of Zootopia, introducing new history, political layers, and cultural context. Themes of prejudice, selective storytelling, and inherited influence are woven naturally into the narrative. Importantly, the film never feels bloated. Everything moves at a brisk, confident pace. Humor-wise, reactions may vary. While there aren't non-stop laugh-out-loud moments, there are several scenes that land well, including a standout sequence involving a walrus riverboat captain. Younger viewers seem to respond more strongly to the comedy, while adults may appreciate the subtler jokes and thematic depth. In the end, this belated sequel proves to be a worthwhile return to the world of Zootopia. With polished animation, strong performances, entertaining action, and meaningful themes, it nearly matches the quality of the original and leaves the door open for future installments. If a third film happens, it's safe to say this sequel has laid a solid foundation. The kind of animation I tend to gravitate toward is the type that works on multiple levels, stories that kids can enjoy, but that also sneak in humor and references aimed at older viewers. So sitting in a packed theater beside my longtime friend, both of us well past childhood, and catching jokes clearly designed for our age group felt strangely satisfying. It almost balances out being surrounded by overly excited, sugar-fueled youngsters. And honestly, it makes sense when you remember the story unfolds in a world of animals who dress, work, and behave like people. This movie was actually requested by my daughter. She spotted it while browsing Disney+, but only trailers and behind-the-scenes content were available since it was still playing in theaters. She's accompanied me before to watch classic cartoons, and one evening she became upset when I went alone because she couldn't understand why she wasn't allowed to join. So when this film hit theaters, I decided to take her along so we could share an experience centered around my love for movies. It turned into a really special bonding moment. Story-wise, the sequel takes place not long after the original events. Officers Judy Hopps, Ginnifer Goodwin, and Nick Wilder, Jason Bateman, may have solved the biggest case in Zootopia's history, but they're still struggling to earn full respect within the department. During a sting operation targeting a customs officer involved in smuggling, Judy and Nick step in and unintentionally derail the plan, leading to a chaotic chase that leaves plenty of collateral damage behind. As punishment, Chief Bogo, Idris Elba, orders them into partner therapy and instructs them to stay out of trouble. Naturally, Judy isn't very good at laying low. The next major event is a celebration marking the expansion of the city's tundra district. The Linksley family, responsible for designing Zootopia's climate-controlled zones, hosts the gathering. Milton Linksley David Stratton serves as the family patriarch and works closely with the city's new mayor, Brian Windenser, Patrick Warburton. Things take a strange turn when a snake named Gary Desnake, Ki Hai Kwan, attempts to steal a mysterious book. From that moment on, Judy realizes something much bigger is happening beneath the surface, and she sets out to uncover who's truly pulling the strings. I'll stop the plot rundown there. What I will say is that I had a great time with this sequel. It doesn't feel like a watered-down continuation. Instead, it closely matches the spirit and quality of the original. Once again, the story plays with appearances, power, and corruption, reminding us that those in charge aren't always acting in everyone's best interest. I also appreciated how the film continues to challenge assumptions about predators and prey, flipping expectations in clever ways without hammering the message too hard. Another strong point is how the movie further fleshes out Zootopia itself. We spend time in desert regions and explore more of the frozen tundra areas, which gives the city a larger, more lived-in feel. Familiar faces return, including Mr. Big, along with appearances from his family. At the same time, new characters are introduced, such as members of the Linksley clan, including Paubert Andy Samberg. This balance between old and new helps the world feel richer rather than repetitive. While this style of animation isn't my personal favorite, I can't deny how polished and visually impressive it is. My daughter was completely mesmerized. This is the longest movie she's ever sat through in a theater, yet she remained engaged the entire time. The contrast between warm desert tones and icy tundra blues really stands out, and the snowy environments genuinely look cold. There are also fun nods to films like The Shining and Ratatouille. The humor works on multiple levels, and the soundtrack supports each moment nicely. From a technical standpoint, it's simply well crafted. The voice performances deserve praise as well. Goodwin and Bateman continue to build Judy and Nick's partnership naturally, without forcing romance into the equation, something I truly appreciate for opposite-gender coworkers. Kwan and Samberg fit right into the ensemble. Fortune famesters Nibbles Maplestick is introduced effectively, and Stratton brings weight to Milton Linksley. Across the board, the supporting cast delivers strong performances. Overall, this sequel manages to preserve the heart, wit, and emotional intelligence of the first film. It expands the world, deepens the themes of prejudice and institutional corruption, and provides meaningful growth for Judy and Nick. With striking visuals, a solid mystery, and a mix of returning favorites and engaging newcomers, it succeeds as both family entertainment and thoughtful storytelling. More importantly, it reinforces how movies can create meaningful shared experiences, something I was lucky enough to enjoy with my daughter. In Zootopia 2, the iconic bunny and fox duo once again face systemic wrongdoing, greed, and their own personal limitations. Picking up after the original, Judy and Nick find themselves searching for their next big purpose when an unexpected case involving the first snake seen in the city in decades throws them into another layered and dangerous investigation, one that challenges everything they think they know. One of the film's strongest qualities is its ability to operate on two levels at once, presenting itself as a colorful, family-friendly adventure while also embedding thoughtful social commentary beneath the surface. On a technical level, the animation is outstanding, reflecting how far the medium has evolved over the last decade. Bold color palettes, dynamic lighting, and intricate textures give the film a polished, modern look. The production design truly pops during a lavish gala sequence that immediately grabbed attention, not only for its visual splendor, but also for its playful energy. That particular scene highlights the movie's knack for building tension in a way reminiscent of classic detective stories, blending suspenseful setup with action beats that are both exciting and comedic. The steady stream of animal-based wordplay and visual jokes remains a major strength, sustaining a lighthearted atmosphere that younger viewers will especially enjoy. Still, the pacing isn't flawless. There's a noticeable stretch of exposition that drags longer than necessary, briefly slowing momentum as the story pauses to explain the hero's strategy. At its core, the film continues to explore ideas of discrimination, bias, and systemic inequality. New characters add intriguing dimensions to these topics, though the sheer number of social issues tackled occasionally results in broader strokes rather than deeper exploration. The narrative weaves together threads of corruption and long-standing exploitation, underscoring Judy's determination to push for reform within Zootopia while positioning Nick as the more cautious realist. In the end, the movie lands on an optimistic note, framing Judy's persistence as a spark for meaningful change in a complicated world. Zootopia 2 feels like a genuine return to Disney's peak animated form, a sequel that honors the strengths of the original without rehashing its exact message. It's another fast-moving, hilarious adventure that sees Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps uncover a darker, more layered conspiracy that stretches into the highest levels of power. This time, the focus shifts toward how wealthy elites manipulate urban expansion and cultural erasure to marginalize those who don't fit in, using carefully constructed narratives to hide their actions. Ginnifer Goodwin and Jason Bateman once again prove to be a flawless duo. Their chemistry remains effortless, and both characters experience meaningful growth. Judy gradually accepts that she doesn't have to shoulder every burden alone, while Nick drops his usual sarcasm for a moment of genuine emotional honesty. Ki Hai Kwan's portrayal of Gary Desnake is inspired casting, bringing warmth and vulnerability to a character deliberately designed to challenge preconceived notions. Directors Jared Bush and Byron Howard craft action sequences that are both thrilling and emotionally engaging, while expanding the world with new districts that make Zootopia feel even more alive. Beginning the story shortly after the events of the first film allows character arcs to continue naturally, and the screenplay is sprinkled with clever callbacks, unexpected pop culture nods, and an abundance of animal-themed humor. Michael Giacchino's energetic score seamlessly shifts between playful, tense, and heartfelt, perfectly complementing the film's tone. As the long-awaited 2025 follow-up to a modern classic, Zootopia 2 stands as more than just a sequel. It's a reaffirmation of Disney's storytelling power. With strong critical reception, enthusiastic audience response, and impressive box office momentum, the film demonstrates that the studio still knows how to craft crowd-pleasing, meaningful animated features. By expanding the universe, deepening its themes, and delivering a story full of surprises, Zootopia 2 proves that this world still has plenty of life left in it. Fans of the original film will take immense pleasure in watching familiar faces collide and connect with newcomers in ways that feel natural and rewarding. The introduction of fresh adversaries raises the stakes, adding extra layers of meaning and conflict that deepen the themes that made the first movie so impactful. Much like its predecessor, the sequel works beautifully for younger viewers while also offering thoughtful storytelling for adults, staying true to Disney's long-standing ability to explore complex ideas through heartfelt, character-centered tales. This is the kind of sequel that matures alongside its audience, respecting its roots while confidently charting a new path. The praise extends across the board to the director, writers, animators, and the entire creative team who push the film beyond standard sequel expectations. The result is a story that balances large-scale spectacle with intimate emotional moments. The pacing remains tight, the comedy hits more often than not, and the emotional scenes feel sincere without drifting into sentimentality. It's evident that the filmmakers treated this world with care, enthusiasm, and a genuine love for the characters they were revisiting. Zootopia 2 stands as a colorful, warm, and consistently entertaining continuation that reminds audiences why this universe became so cherished in the first place. It's a film that feels tailor-made for the big screen, thrives in a lively theater environment, and will surely reward repeat viewings at home. Disney delivers an animated follow-up that not only earns its place, but also strengthens the legacy of the original. For families, animation fans, and longtime Disney followers, this sequel is an easy recommendation and fully deserving of its high praise. Nearly a decade after the first film's release, Disney began expanding the Zootopia universe with the 2022 miniseries, and that expansion continues here with an even broader cast of characters. Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde are now firmly established as partners in law enforcement, and their dynamic evolves in noticeable ways. Chief Bogo, in particular, appears more supportive of Judy and even subtly watches out for her. Since both heroes have earned legendary status within the city, they're portrayed as a celebrated crime-fighting duo, evoking the energy of classic buddy cop pairings like Hobbs and Shaw or Lethal Weapon. At the heart of the story is the growing trust between Judy and Nick. Judy's strong sense of heroism often pushes her toward reckless choices, while Nick's sharp instincts and clever thinking prove surprisingly grounded. Early on, he may come across as the sarcastic partner who thinks he has all the answers, but as events escalate, his logic and caution begin to stand out. He even starts to question whether Judy's relentless drive might be doing more harm than good. While the narrative occasionally leans too heavily in Judy's favor, it does allow her to recognize her impulsiveness, especially after Nick puts himself in danger to save her. Their chemistry remains the film's greatest strength, just as it was before. There are moments where Nick's concern for Judy feels deeply personal, hinting at something more than friendship. The movie never confirms a romantic direction, but it leaves that door slightly ajar, maintaining an intriguing ambiguity. One major difference from the original is how the story shifts its focus. Several familiar characters appear only briefly, making space for new faces that broaden the mythology of Zootopia. The first film's powerful commentary on prejudice and inequality continues to echo here, though the lighter tone sometimes softens its impact. A significant addition comes through the introduction of reptilian characters, who play a crucial role in uncovering hidden truths about the city's past. With mammals no longer the sole inhabitants, the film reveals that Zootopia's history is more complicated than previously shown. This revelation ties back into themes of exclusion, discrimination, and manipulation, particularly through the motivations of the Linksley family. Their scheme, which touches on ideas related to gentrification and social control, reinforces the notion that Zootopia is a city with buried darkness beneath its cheerful surface. While the concept is compelling, the film occasionally struggles with where to place its narrative emphasis. Even so, the underlying idea, that Judy and Nick are the only ones capable of exposing these hidden truths, remains a strong and intriguing foundation for the story. What truly sets this film apart is how it mixes humor, spectacle, and adventurous energy into one package. The original movie leaned more toward a mystery-style narrative with a gentle, playful atmosphere and a slower rhythm. This sequel, however, cranks up both the action and the jokes, giving it the feel of a fast-moving 2000s-era action-adventure. At times, it feels inspired by franchises like Indiana Jones, Mission Impossible, Lethal Weapon, Lara Croft, Die Hard, The Fast and the Furious, The Adventures of Tintin, and similar titles, only filtered through a brighter, more youthful lens. Interestingly, beneath that lighter presentation, there's room for a more grounded and serious animated story. The first film managed to walk a fine line, appealing to kids while still offering substance for older viewers. In this sequel, that balance tilts more toward younger audiences, and its energetic action comedy style places it closer to something like The Bad Guys. Throughout the movie, attentive viewers can catch playful references to other films. A maze sequence that echoes The Shining, a captivity scene reminiscent of The Silence of the Lambs, a quick kitchen moment nodding to Ratatouille, and the Zebros channeling the buddy cop energy of characters played by Eddie Murphy in movies like Beverly Hills Cop and I Spy. Mayor Windenser also feels modeled after classic action icons such as Arnold Schwarzenegger and Chuck Norris. Personality-wise, this equine character borrows traits similar to Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove and Buck from Home on the Range. While amusing, he mostly functions as comic relief, and despite being one of Linksley's henchmen, his dream of becoming a true hero isn't explored in much depth. Gary Desnake, on the other hand, is undeniably charismatic and important to the narrative. His main weakness lies in how early and thoroughly his goals are explained. The audience quickly understands what he's after, but spelling it out in such detail removes some of the intrigue and makes later developments easier to predict. Paubert Linksley arguably needed the most fleshing out. His desire to prove himself worthy of the Linksley legacy is clear, yet when his true agenda comes to light, it feels both surprising and slightly disorienting because we don't know enough about him beforehand. One of the film's bigger issues is its tendency to rush through story beats. Certain choices happen abruptly, and assistance arrives for the heroes at moments that feel more like narrative convenience than organic progression. Nick and Judy occasionally receive help simply because they're famous from the first movie, which strains believability. A good example is Gary calling Judy his best friend despite their limited interaction. That said, this is far from a bad film. It's colorful, energetic, and genuinely entertaining. While its tonal shift and story shortcuts may leave some viewers divided, the movie still brings enjoyable ideas to the table. It expands the world's lore, maintains high-quality animation and expressive character designs, and even includes a new Shakira song. The track Zoo bears a noticeable rhythmic similarity to Waka Waka, This Is Africa, making it feel somewhat recycled, but it remains catchy. Ultimately, Zootopia 2 is a solid and fun family movie. It doesn't quite reach the heights of its predecessor, yet it's still worth watching for fans of the original. The continued partnership between Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde and their natural chemistry is the main reason the sequel avoids being a letdown. Story-wise, Judy and Nick are still working together at the ZPD, but their clashing approaches lead to a failed smuggling bust. Chief Bogo, frustrated by their performance, warns that they'll be separated unless they prove themselves. Judy becomes convinced that a snake has been illegally brought into Zootopia, a city where reptiles are outlawed. She pushes Nick to quietly follow up on this suspicion, which leads him to the Zootennial Gala hosted by the Linksley Journal. Events spiral out of control, and the duo soon find themselves framed, forcing them to go on the run to clear their names. Why reptiles were banned, what the journal truly represents, and how Judy and Nick learn to overcome their differences drive the rest of the plot. Jared Bush successfully broadens the scope of the Zootopia universe, even if the central storyline remains fairly straightforward and sometimes predictable. What Bush and Byron Howard do well is pack the film with humor, charm, and energetic set pieces, keeping it consistently engaging. Familiar faces return and receive enthusiastic reintroductions, and the build-up to these moments is a lot of fun. Most importantly, Judy and Nick's relationship once again anchors the film and provides its strongest emotional core. I experienced the film in 4DX, which normally isn't my go-to format, but with a completely packed theater, it ended up being a blast. The energy in the room alone elevated the screening. The movie is loaded with humor, particularly visual gags involving background animals, and the directing pair clearly designed the sequel to reward repeat viewings. Both returning and new voice actors bring their A-game once again. Likes, animation, adventure, comedy, voice, performances, new song, pacing, heart references, summary. Disney continues to flex its animation muscle, and this sequel is another reminder of just how advanced their craft has become. Fluid motion, vibrant colors, and expressive character animation make Zootopia 2 a visual treat from start to finish. Every corner of the multi-biome city feels alive, inviting viewers to explore and soak in the details as the world expands beyond what we saw in the original. The story ventures further into Zootopia's diverse environments, uncovering new locations, hidden corners, and species-specific behaviors that add depth to the setting. It feels more substantial than the quick montages from the first film, offering a larger-scale adventure that embraces the wild side of this universe. The film leans into classic Disney-style moral lessons, but in a gentler way than before, allowing the messages to land naturally rather than feeling overly direct. Comedy is everywhere, verbal jokes, physical humor, background antics, making it almost impossible not to laugh at something. Kids will likely latch onto the silliness immediately, while adults may find themselves unexpectedly amused as well. It wouldn't surprise me if certain moments become social media trends overnight. One of my favorite elements was the abundance of references. Much like Wish, this sequel playfully nods to Disney's own catalog, sneaking in clever callbacks and visual Easter eggs throughout. These range from purely funny to surprisingly touching, adding an extra layer of enjoyment for longtime fans. The pacing is solid, keeping the story moving without feeling rushed or sluggish. Emotional beats are sprinkled throughout, supported by Disney's signature heartfelt touch. Several monologues tackle timely themes in a way that feels sincere and accessible for modern audiences. The voice performances play a huge role in selling that emotion. Ginnifer Goodwin delivers a wonderfully nuanced performance, effortlessly shifting between optimism, vulnerability, and determination. Jason Bateman remains reliably sharp, excelling in comedic timing and wordplay, even if his role doesn't demand as wide an emotional range this time. Ki Hai Kwan is a standout as the Snake, adorable, earnest, and full of personality. I enjoyed his performance so much that I wish the film had given him even more to do. And if none of that grabs you, Shakira's new song brings extra energy and style, reinforcing the lively spirit of this animal-filled metropolis. Dislikes: predictability, overuse of comedy, not enough mystery/suspense, too many references, limited character growth summary. Despite all its strengths, the film struggles with predictability. Several mysteries can be pieced together fairly early, which lessens their impact. While the movie's playful tone is appealing, some potentially powerful moments feel softened, possibly to avoid becoming too intense for younger viewers. I appreciated the increase in adventure, but I would have loved more intrigue, tension, and magical uncertainty to keep me guessing. At times, the heavy emphasis on jokes and callbacks seems to overshadow the narrative itself. Extended sequences of slapstick humor and exaggerated antics occasionally crowd out quieter, more meaningful moments, particularly those aimed at older audiences. Some side plots feel underdeveloped, as if they were added to check boxes rather than enrich the story. With multiple subplots competing for attention, a few end up stepping on each other's toes. And while the film hints at deeper emotional growth, actual character development feels thinner than expected. Don't get me wrong, some familiar ingredients are still present. But much of what fills the runtime leans into callbacks, playful banter, and lighter surface-level moments, which honestly surprised me given how ambitious the first film was. Verdict: Zootopia 2 is a charming, energetic, and heartfelt adventure that echoes an era of Disney where storytelling balanced meaningful ideas with classic exploration. The animation is stunning, the voice performances feel alive, and Judy and Nick's dynamic once again anchors the entire experience. Everything works together smoothly to bring this world back to the big screen. The film delivers plenty of laughs, moves at a steady clip, and sprinkles in details that reward repeat viewings, making it especially accessible for younger audiences. Where it stumbles is in how much it leans into playful chaos and multiple plot threads. In doing so, some of the emotional weight and sharpness that define the original feels slightly softened. Character growth is present, but it doesn't hit with the same force. Likewise, the mystery element feels safer, as if the script holds back from fully embracing tension or darker implications. There's a sense that more could have been explored, challenged, and pushed. However, modern storytelling restraints are noticeable, and they somewhat limit what could have been one of Disney's boldest sequels. Even with these flaws, Zootopia 2 remains a big screen-worthy experience. It's an engaging return to the animal metropolis, larger in scale, more polished, and emotionally layered in its own way. The film expands its universe while continuing to wrestle with ideas of power, bias, and what meaningful change truly requires. Open book plot overview, no spoilers. With predators and prey now officially coexisting, Zootopia appears to be thriving, but peace is more delicate than it seems. When a string of strange disturbances begins shaking the city's stability, officers Judy Hopps and Nick Wilder are assigned to investigate. What starts as a routine case slowly uncovers deeper cracks beneath Zootopia's glossy surface. Along the way, Judy and Nick are forced to re-examine their own assumptions about fairness, authority, and what it really means to protect a diverse society. White heavy checkmark, what works thoughtful expansion of Zootopia's locations and species, more layered themes, without sacrificing humor, strong emotional progression for Judy and Nick mystery, that rewards attentive viewers' social commentary, that feels relevant, beautifully detailed animation, and environments a solid blend of comedy and seriousness, an ending that emphasizes growth over spectacle. What doesn't work, some heavier ideas may be lost on younger kids' fewer physical comedy moments. First film, certain new characters feel underused, political metaphors may feel heavy-handed to some middle section, drags slightly, a handful of jokes rely too much on nostalgia, lacks a jaw-dropping twist like the original speaking head, memorable lines. Progress doesn't mean we're finished. Fear never vanishes, it just changes its disguise. A broken system won't fix itself. Trust isn't permanent. It's maintained. Anyone can be anything, but choices matter. Sparkle's Fun Facts introduces several new districts never shown before. Original creative leads return for consistency, mystery pacing. Inspired by classic detective sequels, Nick Wilder has a much larger narrative presence. New technology was developed for fur and texture detail. Social themes were shaped with expert consultation. Avoids repeating the predator/prey shock reveal eyes. If you enjoyed this, try Zootopia 2016, Inside Out 2 Spider-Man. Into the Spider-Verse, The Mitchells versus The Machines Ratatouille sing The Incredibles' direct hit Final Thoughts. Zootopia 2 shows that this universe still has important stories left to tell. It's smarter and more ambitious than the average animated sequel, and it respects its audience by tackling serious ideas while remaining entertaining. That said, I walked in expecting something that would match or surpass the original. Because early reactions were so positive, my expectations were high. Unfortunately, while I enjoyed the film, it didn't fully reach that bar for me. A solid sequel, a worthwhile watch. Just not quite the game changer I hoped for. I'll be honest right away, I really enjoyed Zootopia 2, but there are a few things worth talking about before I call it perfect. Overall, the story is solid, yet it definitely feels like a classic middle chapter sequel. The narrative relies a little too heavily on coincidences, the danger never truly feels overwhelming, and some characters don't leave a strong impression. It's all fairly straightforward. Visually, most of the movie looks fantastic, but I couldn't help noticing that a handful of environments and shots appear oddly flat. In fact, a few moments made me wonder if certain scenes look less polished than what we saw back in the original Zootopia. Thankfully, these moments are exceptions rather than the rule. Even if it doesn't fully justify its existence as a sequel, the film still works well on its own. And the biggest reason for that is Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde. I absolutely adore this duo. Their chemistry is just as strong as ever, and their bond grows in a way that almost hints at something more, maybe something Disney is saving for a potential Zootopia 3. Their partnership continues to be the emotional backbone of the franchise. The movie is also packed with references, especially Disney callbacks, and the humor comes fast and often. Some jokes genuinely surprised me, particularly a bizarre walrus moment that feels so strange and specific that it becomes unforgettable. Moments like that gave me genuine laughs. So while Zootopia 2 doesn't quite reach the heights of the first film, Judy and Nick alone make the experience worthwhile. Between the charming leads, fun callbacks, and consistent humor, I'm definitely hoping we get a third movie someday. Now let's talk about why this sequel mostly works. This film has been a long time coming, and I'm actually glad Disney didn't rush it. Taking their time allows the story to speak to both the generation that grew up with the original and a new wave of younger viewers. Judy and Nick might honestly be one of Disney's best pairings ever. They're opposites in so many ways, yet they constantly find ways to understand each other. That idea, learning to coexist despite differences, is one of the film's strongest themes, and one the world could use more of. That's something I've always appreciated about Zootopia as a series. It tackles heavy, real-world issues using simple storytelling. Beneath the cute animals and colorful settings are ideas about prejudice, acceptance, and unity. The story genuinely moved me while also keeping me entertained, which is a tough balance to strike. Comedically, I found this to be one of Disney's funniest animated films in years, nearly matching the original. There are plenty of clever jokes and cultural nods, though I noticed not everyone in my audience caught them. Still, they landed for me. The main downside remains the same. It doesn't quite feel as groundbreaking as the first film. But that's true for most sequels. The important thing is that Zootopia 2 still feels meaningful and worthwhile. The movie expands the world in fun ways, introducing new locations, species, and cultures. Familiar faces return, even if some only briefly, and the addition of reptiles and aquatic creatures opens the door for creative visual design. I really enjoyed seeing how these new animals fit into Zootopia's ecosystem. From a technical standpoint, the animation is vibrant and detailed, ranking among the best-looking animated films of the year. Considering Disney's uneven track record lately, it's refreshing to see a release that feels confident and polished. While the film may lean slightly more toward older audiences thematically, it's still accessible for families. So here's my verdict. Zootopia 2 is a strong sequel and an easy recommendation. If you loved the first film, chances are you'll have a great time with this one too. It's funny, heartfelt, and immersive enough to make you want to spend more time in this world. A lot of people seem to view Zootopia 2 as a return to classic Disney-style storytelling. While I can't compare it to every recent Disney release, I understand the sentiment. The movie feels old school in the sense that it uses fantasy to explain complicated ideas in ways kids can grasp. There were even moments where I forgot I was watching a kids' movie. Just like the original, this sequel tackles racism, cultural division, and systemic injustice. It also touches on how societies often downplay or erase the contributions of marginalized groups. The political undertones are surprisingly bold, especially for a major studio animated film. The humor also feels more mature. Aside from one obvious gag, the movie avoids excessive, hyperactive jokes. Instead, it leans heavily into visual comedy, sometimes almost too much, but the creativity behind these gags is impressive. The animation remains crisp and richly textured, especially with the new animal types. I also appreciate that not every single creature is anthropomorphized, which adds a layer of realism and thoughtful world building. Finally, Ginnifer Goodwin and Jason Bateman once again deliver excellent performances. Their voices bring warmth, humor, and emotional depth to Judy and Nick, and I found their evolving relationship genuinely touching. In short, Zootopia 2 may not surpass the original, but it's a heartfelt, funny, and meaningful sequel that proves this world still has plenty of stories left to tell. Ki Hai Kwan absolutely steals the show as Gary Desnake. From a visual standpoint alone, the character immediately grabs your attention, but what really impressed me was the unexpected emotional direction they take him in. I genuinely didn't anticipate where his arc would go, and I ended up loving it. Zootopia 2 isn't a revolutionary film, and there are moments where familiar story beats resurface in ways I wish had been handled differently. At times, the narrative becomes quite dense, which could make it harder for younger viewers to stay fully engaged. Even so, I walked away pleasantly surprised. In an era where many Disney sequels feel formulaic or motivated purely by profit, this one actually feels purposeful. It stands as a worthy continuation, and in some ways, it might even rival the original. I've always had a soft spot for the first Zootopia. It's colorful, beautifully animated, filled with great performances, and anchored by a heartfelt story. It remains one of my favorite Disney animation titles. So going into the sequel, my expectations were understandably high. While Zootopia 2 doesn't quite capture the same lightning-in-a-bottle freshness, it's clear that the filmmakers put genuine care into developing the characters once again. The story reunites Judy Hopps, Ginnifer Goodwin, and Nick Wilde, Jason Bateman, now officially partners on the police force. They're assigned a new case, and many of the familiar lessons about prejudice, trust, and personal growth make a return. Some jokes and thematic elements feel a bit recycled, and I'll admit a few moments made me groan. Still, the confident execution usually makes those moments land. The mystery centers around Gary Desnake, a reptile who is convinced that snakes, and reptiles in general, were deliberately pushed out of Zootopia long ago. This storyline injects fresh energy into the film and prevents it from feeling like a simple retread. It adds emotional weight and gives the sequel its own identity. On top of that, the movie continues to deliver plenty of laugh-out-loud jokes and genuinely touching scenes. Shakira also returns as Gazelle with another high-energy musical performance. Yes, it echoes the first film, but it's entertaining enough that I didn't mind. Overall, Zootopia 2 follows a familiar formula, but it executes that formula extremely well. Despite a handful of criticisms, I had a great time from beginning to end. Between the clever wordplay, film references, and one standout sequence near the finale, this is a strong sequel in my book. What impressed me most is how naturally the film connects to its predecessor. It feels like a true continuation rather than a forced add-on. The world building expands in exciting ways, especially with the introduction of reptiles and marine mammals into Zootopia's ecosystem. The action sequences are engaging, the environments are imaginative, and the humor remains rapid-fire and densely packed. Blink and you'll miss many of the visual and verbal gags, including nods to other Disney films, Succession, Silence of the Lambs, and even The Shining. There's also a completely absurd dick-dick joke that caught me off guard in the best way. Nick and Judy's evolving partnership continues to be the emotional backbone of the story. I enjoyed the tension between Judy's impulsive drive for justice and Nick's sarcastic skepticism. The voice cast across the board is excellent, with some fun cameos. Danny Trejo as a basilisk and Patrick Warburton as a Schwarzenegger-style horse Mayer being particular standouts. Smaller side characters, like a beaver conspiracy theorist and some great walrus humor in Marsh Town, add extra flavor. Gary himself is incredibly endearing. Ki Hai Kwan's performance gives him a warm, innocent charm, and the animation captures his curiosity and gentle personality beautifully. My only real disappointment is that I wanted more of him, and more reptile species in general. I also wish the film spent more time showing the growing strain between Nick and Judy to better justify the threat of them being separated as partners. At times, their dynamic feels slightly unbalanced, with Judy's recklessness not challenged as strongly as Nick's cynicism. Even with those issues, Zootopia 2 remains a polished, entertaining, and thoughtfully made film. The thematic approach to the villains is smart, featuring a solid twist and commentary on corporate influence and systemic exclusion. There's even a fun little tease during the end credits. In short, this is a passionate and creative sequel that easily ranks among Disney's best non-Pixar follow-ups. That may be a low bar, but Zootopia 2 clears it with style. The film picks up shortly after the events of the original, with Judy and Nick officially partnered at the Zootopia Police Department. Their clashing personalities create headaches for their superiors, and after botching an operation, Chief Bogo orders them into mandatory therapy to rein in their reckless behavior or risk being split up. Meanwhile, Judy uncovers evidence suggesting a snake has entered Zootopia for the first time in over a century, including a mysterious piece of shed skin and clues pointing toward an appearance at the upcoming Zootennial Gala. Defying direct instructions from Chief Bogo, Judy and Nick secretly slip into the Zootennial Gala, where they cross paths with Gary Desnake, voiced by Ki Hai Kwan, a pit viper who drops a shocking revelation. The celebrated origin story of Zootopia may be built on a disturbing falsehood. Back in 2016, Disney delivered what I still consider one of the strongest animated releases of the decade, a lively, candy-colored adventure centered on an unlikely duo. A rabbit and a fox. While younger audiences were treated to fast-paced fun and charming characters, older viewers found an added layer of thoughtful commentary about prejudice, stereotypes, and social division. What truly set the film apart was its balance. These heavier ideas were presented organically, never feeling heavy-handed or preachy. As a result, Zootopia resonated with audiences of nearly every age group. Now, almost 10 years later, Zootopia 2 picks up the baton and continues the journey, proving that Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde remain a compelling team worth spending more time with. The story resumes barely a week after the events of the first movie. Judy and Nick are now officially partners in the ZPD, working side by side to keep the city safe. However, their contrasting philosophies about law enforcement quickly begin to create friction. Judy prefers strict adherence to protocol, while Nick favors a more instinct-driven, hands-on style, forming a familiar by-the-book cop versus rule-bending cop dynamic. Tensions escalate when a reckless pursuit of a criminal van spirals into a large-scale disaster, putting their partnership in serious jeopardy. This conflict works as a clever metaphor for the predator versus prey divide, reinforcing how difficult it can be for animals from fundamentally different backgrounds, like a fox and a rabbit, to truly see eye to eye, even when they share the same goals. From this point onward, the sequel gradually shifts into a darker, more mysterious direction than its predecessor. We learn that reptiles, particularly snakes, have been absent from Zootopia for more than 100 years, which explains the chaos that erupts when Gary suddenly appears in public. Despite the fear surrounding him, Gary is portrayed as gentle, hopeful, and eager to help Judy and Nick dismantle the stigma surrounding his kind, so reptiles can once again coexist peacefully within the city. This storyline taps into one of the franchise's strongest assets, world building. The film expands Zootopia's universe by introducing the Marsh Market, a hidden settlement on the city's swampy fringes where reptiles such as turtles, lizards, and amphibians have carved out their own society. The area feels run down and forgotten, almost like a shadow city populated by animals that mainstream Zootopia has chosen to ignore. It subtly suggests how neglect and discrimination can turn marginalized communities into breeding grounds for crime and exploitation. Visually, the sequel remains bold and imaginative, bursting with color when appropriate but unafraid to dive into grimy, dimly lit territory when the narrative demands it. The Marsh Market stands out in particular, featuring warm sepia hues and murky lighting that give its interiors a moody, atmospheric feel. One standout sequence places Judy and Nick inside a blues club populated by amphibian musicians, tortoise security guards, and an irritable sea lion who despises being confused for a seal. As they navigate the crumbling venue, the duo encounter Jessus, a basilisk criminal voiced by Danny Trejo, casting that instantly signals danger. What makes this scene memorable is how it mimics the tension of a gritty crime thriller while still maintaining a playful, family-friendly edge, which is no easy feat. Comedy once again leans heavily on the chemistry between Judy and Nick. Judy's earnest, no-nonsense personality plays well against Nick's sarcastic, smooth-talking charm, though this dynamic occasionally feels a bit overused compared to the first film. The animal-based sight gags also vary in effectiveness. Some land nicely, while others fall flat. A few highlights include moments where tiny creatures unexpectedly terrify much larger animals, such as a mouse sending an elephant into full panic mode, complete with trauma counseling sessions that involve Judy and Nick. Thankfully, the famously sluggish sloths make their return, and their painfully slow behavior is still as amusing as ever. Their presence alone feels like a small but welcome nod to one of the original movie's most beloved running jokes. On the flip side, some of the jokes that didn't work tended to overstay their welcome. A perfect example is the sequence with the walruses who communicate by endlessly repeating, Yep, it earns a chuckle at first, but stretching the gag for several minutes turns it from amusing to irritating. By the time the scene wrapped up, I felt more exhausted than entertained. That said, the chemistry between Jennifer Goodwin and Jason Bateman once again proves to be a major highlight. Watching Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde bounce off each other is still a pleasure. Judy continues to serve as the ideal straight-laced counter to Nick's sarcastic humor, and both actors slip back into their roles effortlessly. Even though the story takes place only a week after the original film, you can sense subtle growth in both characters. Judy remains upbeat, but she now approaches her work with a more grounded, realistic mindset. Nick still has his street-smart edge, yet shows a stronger moral compass and a genuine desire to protect others. The development isn't massive, but it's appreciated. Supporting performances are solid as well. Idris Elba brings a few laughs as Chief Bogo, and Ki Hai Kwan makes a fun addition to the cast as Gary.